So Michael and I are here sharing our personal stories of how sexual brokenness has impacted and wrecked our lives, but about the redemption, forgiveness, and rebirth of Jesus in our lives. And so this is my favorite part of our time together. Well, I love being with the teens. It's so awesome to be with teens who have their whole life ahead of them to make some of these choices and changes that we are too old to make. No, I'm just kidding. We're not too old to make changes in our lives. We're never too old to change, right? God will change our lives at any point. But I think it's a really exciting opportunity for us, as so many of us are parents or will one day be parents, to make an impact on the next generation with regards to the sexual brokenness that we live amongst in our culture. So Michael and I are from Indianapolis, Indiana. We have 3 kids, and we have a passion for helping people overcome sexual brokenness in their lives, and we have a passion for helping the next generation not wreck their lives with sexual brokenness, or learn how to make new choices and decisions and form a path towards wholeness if they have already made decisions that have caused sexual brokenness in their lives. So today we're going to be talking about how to be equipped to help the next generation. So I'm going to ask you, there's going to be a little more interaction today than there was yesterday, so stay with me. Drink some coffee if you need to. Okay, raise your hand if you have kids that are in... Okay, raise your hand if you have kids. Let's start there. Yeah, good idea. Okay, raise your hand now if your kids are high school or college. All right, a lot of that. Raise your hand if your kids are middle school. That's a good time, isn't it? Okay, and how about now elementary? Awesome. And then how about preschool or littler? Oh, we have everything. We have all the ages. I love it. I love it. Okay, I want to ask you guys to take a guess at what age when all we do is sexual integrity ministry. That's like our full-time gig. At what age do you guess that we recommend you start talking to your kids about sexuality? 5 to 7. You say the same thing? Elementary, yeah. What else? Anybody else? What did you say, Mikey?
As soon as they're ready.
As soon as they're ready. How do you know when they're ready? That is a good question. How do you know when they're ready? I'm asking. What do you think?
When they start asking you questions.
When they start asking you questions. That's a good point. Okay, so this is going to blow your minds because nobody has said what we would recommend about when you start talking about sexuality. We recommend it as soon as they become verbal / have any kind of independence from you, like they're going away from you for any length of time. Now, age appropriate. And how the heck do you do that? Well, we don't rely on even our own understanding for that because we're not like child development specialists or anything, but we know resources for that age appropriate conversation that you start with your child from 3 to 5. That's about the age we recommend. And at that age, it's mostly just like about boys and girls and the differences between boys and girls. Well, that is a topic of sexuality, is it not? That's the first realization a child has, is that, oh, my brother looks different from me. So that would be my child yelling out on the playground, just so you're aware. She's very loud. Okay, you guys, this is why we have to start really, really young, because we live in such a sex-saturated culture. The average teen is exposed to 40,000 sexual images on television each year alone. That is an average of 110 sexual images a day. Now, my kids don't watch a whole lot of TV, so that means other kids are watching, like double to make up for that. So obviously it's going to vary, but this is just on television, so we're not even talking about pornography. Oh, and by the way, on some of our slides, you'll see text us your questions and Michael's number and my number. At the end of each session, we will have time for Q&A, just so you know. All right, this is part of why this is such a problem today, you guys, is because we are digital immigrants raising digital citizens. So our kids have grown up with, when she was 3, she could take the iPad and navigate the iPad and use technology because our kids are growing up with it. It's innate, it's second nature. If I have a tech question, I can go to my husband because he's a tech guy. Or I can go to my almost 15-year-old who knows way more than I do about technology because it's so innate. And so part of the problem with us being digital immigrants with regards to how hypersexual our culture is that most of us are pretty unaware of what is accessible to our kids, unless we ourselves have been struggling with looking at pornography. But we don't realize that you can follow porn stars on Facebook. Michael's going to get more into some of the technology side and the social media side of this, but I'm just pointing out why it's a problem and why there's a disconnect and why we have to address this and why you guys need to tell all your friends who couldn't make it to this conference to get educated on these issues, because this is really scary. 90% of kids aged 8 to 16 have viewed pornography online. Most of them, they're not searching for it. Vast majority, not searching for it. They're online doing their homework. It used to be that some variation of like the White House, maybe the whitehouse.com or something, was a porn site. There are intentional attempts to hook our children young. And so we have to be aware of this. And that's part of why we have to start talking to our kids the moment we give them access to the internet. So if you're giving your kid an iPad at age 3, and there are ways to monitor that and block it, and I definitely recommend that. But there is always that chance of exposure. And 80% of kids who are accidentally exposed to pornography went back to look at more and didn't tell their parents. I know that's so scary. And we don't think of our young children as sexual beings. Well, we all are. God created us sexual beings. That's part of who we are. And the reason why kids tend to go back is the chemical cocktail that happens in the brain when they see it, the shock. There's a certain level of pleasure at the same time, that sexual wiring that God created in our brains. That mix of what happens, it strikes shame and curiosity and all these different things, and it sucks them right in. That's why we have to talk to them when they're really young about this. And I'm going to give you some tools for that. Okay, this is a picture. My son is in the middle in the blue Under Armour shirt with the glasses. That's him like in the spring. So he had just turned 11. Him with a bunch of his buddies. They nicknamed their little group the Munchkins. I don't know why. I think it's really cute and funny. They're so young. Don't they look so young and sweet and innocent? Okay, well, and this picture does not represent the quote. I'm just showing you this age group. These are 10 and 11-year-old boys. In the last 5 years, a well-known addiction coach has received close to 200 calls from 10 to 14-year-old boys who want to stop watching porn but haven't been able to on their own. 10 to 14-year-old boys. This is like their children. It's so scary. And then there's a huge moral crisis because teens were surveyed. Okay, which of these categories do you think is usually or always wrong? And when surveyed teens, about 32% of them said using pornography was usually or always wrong, and 56% said not recycling was usually or always wrong. So that's another problem, is that kids growing up in this age that are exposed to it young, it becomes normalized. They see it as normal, and not just pornography, but our over-sexualized media. That's kind of like the gateway to the gateway drug. It softens their thoughts about what is immodest or what is inappropriate, to where pornography in the general society among teens, only a third of them think it's usually or always wrong. So it's a moral crisis. And there have been lots of studies that show that porn use is linked to increase in teen sexual behavior. This is a study published by the New York Times. It says that adolescents who seek out porn are more likely to engage in certain sexual behaviors like anal sex and group sex, things they see depicted in porn, and to begin having sex at younger ages. And we have our moral reasons as believers, as followers of Christ, why we think that's a problem. But even on a secular level, there is a recognition that this is not good. This is harmful to children's brains. The American Academy of Pediatrics Can sexual activity, alcohol and drug use, and other risky behaviors damage adolescents' minds? In a word, yes. Early high-risk behaviors, including sexual encounters, are powerful influences and appear to be harmful to the brain's development. The hormones and neural patterns triggered can lead to addictive high-risk behaviors, social withdrawal, and depression. What's more, these adolescent behaviors may have additional long-term negative consequences, not just for them, but also for their future children. Oh gosh, I forgot to read this other quote to you guys from a student in middle school. This is a real person. We'll call him Brian. This is what he says about how exciting and new porn is for tweens in middle school. He says, pornography is constantly talked about in middle school. Probably every day you could walk around the lunch tables and hear boys discussing videos they had seen or telling stories about porn stars. Middle school. Okay, is everybody depressed yet? And like, oh my gosh, this is a huge problem. And this room should be filled and triple, because every parent should know this and understand this. And just the fact that they don't and they're not here, that scares me. Because we're gonna lose a whole generation of young men and women. So my encouragement to you guys, and admonition, this is not in my notes, is to go out and spread this like the gospel. Because it is urgent. We're gonna lose our kids. Okay, what is the antidote to all these problems? We're gonna transition from the depressing part of all of this and the truth, the reality and the facts to what do we do about it? Okay, this is a picture of me and Abby after we did a color run to raise money for her first mission trip this summer. And then a picture of Michael with my son Josiah. The antidote, honestly, it's not rocket science. It's close, connected relationships with parents where any topic is open for discussion, where a child feels like they can come to you and talk about anything. I have a friend who went ahead and started talking to her 11-year-old about pornography and actually read the resource that we recommend to her son. And thank God she also had in place heavy-duty filters. Because what he did after he read the book with her, he got curious. He looked up the word porn. I was like, oh, that's not supposed to happen. The whole point of this book is to help kids understand how damaging this is. But it got blocked, so he didn't get to see anything, thank God. Then he went to her right away, and he felt so guilty, and he told her what he did. And she just was like, oh, buddy, that must have been so hard for you to come and tell me that. I'm so proud of you that you told me. What do you think that did for that child? Encouraged him and made him realize, like, I can talk to my mom about my struggles and my problems. That kind of openness and connected relationship with parents is the number one antidote. Okay, let's talk about the ever-dreaded sex talk with mom and dad. Why do you guys think we avoid talking about sexuality with our kids? It's a glorious part of God's creation. It's a glorious part of who we are. Why do we avoid it? Yeah, it used to be taught as shameful. What else?
I think what you just said is an example. I think as parents, when our kids were younger, the thought was, well, if we talk about it, then they're going to go exploring. So that was the fear. So
Yeah.
you postpone it to say, okay, don't talk about it. Maybe they won't go try it.
And that worked a little better until maybe high school-ish or middle school-ish for my generation. But then again, at the same time, all the men that I know that are in Michael's group, his men's purity group, they all got exposed between about 10 and 13 to pornography, and that was like Playboy magazines. So,
Some as early as 3 years old.
Yeah.
I think maybe you just don't know what to say.
Yes, we don't know what to say. Absolutely.
We were never taught to about it by our parents.
Right. So it wasn't modeled to us, and how do we do something that wasn't modeled to us? These are all reasons. Anybody else have one? Various reactions to the ever-dreaded sex talk. Okay, so let's look at what not to do. Oh, wait, no, I have a question first. I want to ask you guys, raise your hand. Everybody has to participate. Well, I mean, like, after the question's asked. Okay. Okay, raise your hands if your there's 3 categories. There's your parents never talk to you about sex. That's one category. Number 2 would be your parents had the one awkward sex talk. And number 3 is your parents had ongoing dialogue with you about sex in the home. So number 1, your parents never talked to you about sex. Wow, that's unusual. That's like 3/4 of the room. Did I do the math right? Help me out. Okay, how many of you had the one awkward sex talk with your parents? Okay, and how many of you had ongoing where that was an ongoing topic? Me too. Yeah. Okay, very, what were there 3 of us that just raised our hands? So very uncommon to have, and that is what we're telling you needs to happen if we're gonna help our kids, if we're gonna be there for our kids in this. Okay, so we've got to make major shifts because this was not modeled to us. Let's look at what not to do, shall we? This is a scene from the very once popular series Twilight. You know, about Bella, one of the main characters, and her dad's attempt to have the sex talk with her.
I mean, you definitely don't want to have to get married because you weren't careful.
What?
Well, you know what I'm talking about. There's things that you need to think about if you're going to be physically intimate.
Okay, don't have the talk.
It's just as embarrassing for me as it is for you.
I doubt that. And don't bother because Mom beat you to it like 10 years ago.
Well, you didn't have a boyfriend 10 years ago.
I'm sure things work the same way.
Alright, so you guys are taking precautions.
Okay, Dad, please just don't worry about that. Edward is old school.
Old school, great. What's that, like code for something?
Oh my God, Dad, I'm a virgin.
Okay, good. Glad we covered that.
Me too.
Okay, watch and learn. What does Bella's dad do? What does Bella's dad do that is a good example of how not to do the sex talk? He seems totally mortified, doesn't he? Yeah. What else?
He skirts around the issues.
Totally skirts around the issues.
He doesn't really show like authority on the situation. He's the parent, so he should be like more authoritative.
Yeah. He doesn't show authority.
He doesn't explain anything. He's like, well, you know what I'm talking about.
Right. He makes assumptions.
He let her come in and go,
Yeah. Yeah, he let her tell him it was okay. Anyone else? Isn't that a great awkward sex talk? Okay. Okay, so here is how we can make a shift. We have a couple areas we have to make a huge shift if we're going to be effective in equipping our kids. We need to make a huge shift in our frequency, our approach, and our involvement. So she's like 17 and he's having this talk with her for the first time. And he won't even use any of the words. You know, like he won't say birth control or protection or, you know, he's just, even, and when she says the word virgin, he acts like it's a dirty word. He goes, you know? So dealing with our own sexual shame is sometimes the first thing we've got to do in order to feel more comfortable talking about this with our kids. Okay, so frequency of approach. Oh, wait, I don't want that one yet. Instead of one sex talk, no sex talks, or waiting until our kid's 17, frequent. And I mean open conversation. Now, we don't want to give our kids too much information. I realize that's the tricky part. That's why we're going to rely on some experts to start each conversation at each age group. And then we let our kids come to us with questions. And let me tell you, they will come with questions. Because we've been practicing this on our kids, and sometimes I'm shocked at the things that they say and ask. But I have to try to hold my shock inside and not be like, Like one time Addie asked, she was taking human sexuality when she was 14, and my son Josiah had just turned 11. And she was like, oh yeah, like Kristen, explain to Josiah what ejaculation is. And I was just like, okay. You know, I had to like breathe and just, and not act shocked, because this is why would I need to be ashamed about that? That's part of God's design and God's creation. And so I try to use age appropriate terms, like I say, well, that's part of how God gets the seed out of a man's penis and into his wife to have a baby. And he's like, oh. And so like to them, it's like no big deal. It's like it comes up at the dinner table sometimes. My kids will ask questions. And the more we remain calm and just answer their question matter of fact, or say, sometimes we have to say, you know what, I'm not sure how to answer that. Let me think about that. Let me talk to your dad, and I'll get back to you. But then I have to get back to them, because you know the biggest reason why one of the biggest reasons why kids go looking for porn is because they don't feel like they're getting enough information from mom and dad or their youth leaders. So they go to porn for sex education. Seriously. Okay, so I covered frequency, starting young, and I'll give you the tools in a minute here. And the approach, with as little embarrassment and shame as possible. You can go like later and go like curl up in a ball in the corner of your room because you're like freaking out, or you can like, you know, go for a run and call your best friend and be like, oh my God, listen to what my kid just asked me. You know, you can do that out of their presence later, but in their presence, trying to remain calm and composed. And then involvement, like there seems to be two extremes in parenting. There's like, once my kid hits middle school, I just kind of let them run with their life and they like just do their thing, and I don't really meddle. Or there's like, I lock them in their room forever, which, just kidding, who is that extreme? But I think in our digital age, we tend to give our kids way too much freedom. Michael's gonna talk a lot about how to lock it down and how to protect our kids and parent our kids on a technological level, but even on a parenting and an emotional level. When we become available to our kids, and you know how those windows like open when they're teens and then they slam shut, and then they open of when they want to talk to you and then when they think you're an idiot. So like when the window opens, having to like be completely as much as possible available. And what that has done in our family is, I'm not even Addie's biological mother, I'm her stepmom. She was 9 when Michael and I married, but she literally comes to me and tells me, this boy texted me and asked me for naked pictures, and I'm like, what did you tell him? And she tells me, and she has the tools of knowing what to do when those kinds of situations come across her lap, and will come and tell me. But creating a safe environment where she knows I'm not going to freak out and go call the police, which there's a place for that, I'm sure, but where she knows that she can come to me, and sometimes I do tell her, if as long as you're not at risk, I don't have to go run and tell your dad everything. Like as long as you're safe, I can keep this between you and me. And so she comes to me with, you guys would die if I told you everything that. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so. Involvement, that's the last part, being involved in our kids' lives on a technological and emotional level, so they can ask every question they want. So here's our recommended resources. These are on our resource page, which should be at the back of your program. Let others start the conversation for you instead of starting it yourself. On the left, you'll see a group of 4 books. These are God's Design for Sex. Is that what it's called, Michael? The God's Design for Sex series. I think that's what it's called. It's in your program. But there's 4 books, and then there's also a parent book that's not pictured here. The Story of Me is basic like gender, like God made boys and God made girls, and here are the girl parts and here are the boy parts, and we use the anatomically correct terms. And then the orange one is for 5 to 8-year-olds, and that actually does give a 5 to 8-year-old explanation of intercourse. But these are Christian books put out by Nav Press. They're excellent. There's one for 8 to 11 and one for 11 to 14. And then on the right is an excellent resource called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. This is a book about porn-proofing your kids. So we take the approach, instead of shielding your child from ever seeing porn, we look at it porn-proofing, kind of like waterproofing. So if I have a waterproof jacket, it doesn't mean I'm never going to get pelted with rain, but it's going to keep me safe and dry. And so when I look at porn-proofing my kids, I'm looking at telling them what they need to do when they see porn. We can no longer have the luxury of being like, well, if my kid sees it, then I'll deal with it. We have to tell them. I recommend telling them about inappropriate pictures before they get on the bus for kindergarten, because kids in elementary school have handheld devices, have access to the internet, unsupervised by adults on the school bus. Anytime your kid goes over to somebody else's house to play, my son was going to a slumber party, and it's like, well, what kind of filters do you have at home? Having to think about protecting our kids anytime they're away from us, or anytime somebody else from the outside comes in and brings their handheld device. So what this book does, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, it not only explains it's a 7 to 13-year-old level that they recommend you sit down and read this book with your child. And I try to read it with Josiah about once every 6 months or so, just to keep it fresh. But it tells them what pornography is and what to do, and why it's harmful and how it harms the brain on a kid level. It explains that. And then what to do when you see it. So they call it their 5-point can-do plan of what to do when you're exposed. And so I think it's imperative that we address this issue of pornography head on as soon as they're going out of our presence. And then for those early teen years, this is another great resource. It's called Passport to Purity, and it's a whole set of CDs that you listen to, some activities, what they call a travel journal where your kid can take notes, and there's just encouragement to go do something fun together. So for Abby and I, this is our blindfold makeover. This is what teenage girls love to do. So she blindfolded herself and had a thing of makeup in front of her and did my makeup without being able to see me. I know that has nothing to do with sex, but it's girly and it's fun. And so that's our blindfolded makeover. We went camping to do our Passport to Purity weekend. Let me show you her reaction when I first put the first CD in, and she didn't know that's what we were going to be doing. She knew we were going to have a special time. And I put the CD in, and they start talking about what it's going to be about. And she curled up. She had a pillow pet. She was about to turn 13. She had a pillow pet. She curled up against the door of the car and was like, oh my gosh. She was freaking out. And she was mad too. She was like, I can't believe we're doing this. I don't want to do this. And she had an attitude. She was curled up. And I was like, okay, stay calm. We're just doing this. And I just had to talk myself through, this is going to be okay, and I'm the parent, and she needs this. And by the end, she had an absolute blast. That was 2 years ago in August, and it revolutionized and changed our relationship. That was the starting point of her coming to me and being like, hey, here's what's going on at school, or here's what this boy texted me, or here, just having this openness to keep talking about sex, and to talk about pornography, and to talk about all of these things. So this is an excellent resource that I highly recommend. It's available on Amazon. All of these are available on Amazon, or you can go, this is a Family Life resource if you're familiar with Family Life Ministry. So now I'm gonna have Michael come up, and he's gonna get into some of the nitty-gritty technology aspects of equipping our kids.
So, hey guys. So let me ask you, how many people give access or let their kids have access to internet in their homes? Raise your hand. Yeah, most everybody. How about tablets and cell phones? How many teenagers have cell phones in your home? Yeah, for sure. Most of us do. Most families provide access to all of our kids, or it's the digital age, and that's what. There we go. So what do we do as far as locking down our homes and keeping our kids safe? You guys turn in your handout. I'm going to go through this this page here. This is a digital contract, media guidelines and contract that I suggest you use. So go home and fill this out. And basically at the end, what you do is you have all the members in your household read it, agree to it, and sign it. And so it kind of starts like this. You start with listing every device, every electronic device that has access to the internet and their location. And I listed a lot of technology. Some of these things a lot of us don't realize actually have access to the internet. Smartphones, tablets, laptop computers, desktop computers, those are somewhat obvious. But smart TVs, cable TV boxes, DVD players, Apple TVs, gaming consoles, and the wireless routers themselves, of course. So yeah, gaming consoles, in many, I think if not all of the gaming consoles, you can actually pull up a web browser and you can access the internet, type in any porn site that you want to. And kids have actually accidentally discovered porn by doing that, and online games that they share with their friends and so on. So list all that stuff out and the location, and then the next part is define access times allowed for each device, for each family member. So what times are your teenage kids going to be allowed to use their smartphone? What time can they use the tablet? Can they use it after school? They have to do it after they're finished with their homework. What time do they have to shut it off? Are they allowed to use it in their bedroom? And so on, behind closed doors. So make all those decisions ahead of time and write it all out. So get as specific as you want with this. And for each family member, of course, age appropriate for teenagers, the digital network, social networking, all that stuff. It's kind of like another continent for these kids. They have conversations at school, and then after school, the conversations continue on social networking. So that's the next piece of it. Define the allowed content. So what is it that you're going to allow into your home? Of course, the positive side and the negative side. What are you going to allow? What are you not going to allow? So categories like school websites, websites used for research, some entertainment sites. A lot of people use Hulu and YouTube, Pinterest, whatever it is, some of the social networking sites and stuff. And then get really specific about what's not allowed in your home. Instead of just thinking that, just like Bella's dad, assuming that your kid already knows this stuff, but write it down. Pornography is not allowed in my home, right? Explicit language, extreme violence, gore, etc. Horror movies, horror movies are not allowed in our home. Anything that's demonic like that. Movies like The Exorcist, all this stuff. Kids, what is it about kids that they like to be scared? Halloween is coming up, and all the, all this demonic stuff that comes out on the television. So what's allowed and what's not allowed? Define all of it. Get really specific. For so many families, we actually need another sheet of paper. So photocopy this. You can use this, give it to your friends, distribute it all, as much as you'd like to. So, and then set the social networking sites. There's so many of them, and what is it that you want to allow your kids to have access to, and what not? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are the most popular. What sites are not going to be allowed? Like Periscope is one of them. I'll talk about that in a minute. But what sites are allowed, what sites are not allowed. And with all of these, porn stars have Facebook accounts. You can look at pictures of girls in bikinis and lingerie all over all of these social networking sites. So what is it that they're going to be allowed to see, and what is it that they're not going to be allowed to see, and what time? Social networking sites. So they're pretty important to these kids. But what is it? What is it that you're going to allow in your home, or not in your home, but on their cell phone? And then at the bottom, all members of the household read and sign this contract. So it's a contract, and make copies of it, put it on the refrigerator so everybody can see this, so we know this is what we agreed to. And if the rules get broken, then decide what happens, what's going to happen for your kids if they get broken. If how long, the first offense you're grounded for a day, second for 3 days, and so on and so forth. But if they don't sign it, I say you don't get to use the technology. you know, if you don't agree to this. That's just as simple as that. So that's the way to safeguard our kids. For those that don't have any kids yet, you don't have any children, or not married and so on, you know, using these kind of safeguards in your own life for technology, making it less accessible for yourself is obviously a good idea as well. And content, you know, blocking content is what we're going to talk about next. And this is pretty important if you want to flip over to the next slide. Yeah, we're through here. Okay, so blocking and filtering and time limits. As far as cable TV, contact your internet provider or your cable TV provider, and most of them have parental controls that you could set up for cable television, and you can program all of that online these days, so you have to contact them. Right on. Cell phones, for your own cell phone, for your kid's cell phone, check with your cell phone provider. Most of them, if not all the major carriers, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, they all have some extra service that you have to subscribe to. So you can put in time limitations and access and stuff, so you can actually have their entire cell phone shut down. My daughter, she's about to turn 15 Wednesday, actually. Yeah, just a few days, soon to be 15. So, and her iPhone shuts down all by itself at 8 o'clock every evening, and she begs me to turn it on. Can I have one more hour, Dad? No, you can't have one more hour. And if she keeps begging me, then I say, okay, we're going to change it to 7 o'clock. That only happened a couple of times, and then she stopped asking me for more time. She realized I'm gonna back it up in the opposite direction. So she quit asking. When she goes over to her friend's house and spends the night, why can't I have access to my phone until midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning? I said, okay, I'm just gonna shut your phone off for the rest of the weekend while you're there. So anyway, yeah, contact your cell phone carrier and go online if you don't already have access to that. So filtering your home network. Wi-Fi network, there's a service called OpenDNS. So OpenDNS, it's spelled just like this. Put .com after that. Go to OpenDNS.com. This is a service that allows you to filter questionable websites from your router, your internet router. So your wireless internet at home is completely filtered. You can't access porn through it. Now there's a couple of different levels. They have basic filtering for free, and I definitely suggest starting with that. If you don't already have this service, start with a free service, just to see if it's if you can configure it. There are a few internet service providers that actually don't allow this to be used on the equipment that they give you. So when they come out and they install your wireless internet and they set all of it up and they give you a little box, some of those little boxes actually don't allow this technology and the Wi-Fi router. Most of them do, but occasionally there's some UVerse boxes that do not. Is there a comment over there?
I just have a question about the cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
As they get older, do you not increase the time, but do you raise the limit up as far as the time it shuts off, or how do you, or do you go by how they're doing, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question for sure. And I say the older that they get, a little bit less, a little bit looser boundaries, probably, especially like bedtime. If they have a later bedtime, then maybe give them a little bit more access. And schools these days, I mean, there's some schools that are actually not using textbooks anymore, that they're giving iPads to kids. Most of the schoolwork is done online. They need a laptop computer. They need access to the internet. So to do their homework, but yeah, certainly. So yeah, my daughter during the week, I think her phone shuts off at 8 o'clock, and she's, I expect her to be in bed by 9 o'clock. Sometimes she's up between 9 and 10, but she knows that that's when she needs to get herself into her room and get to bed by 9 o'clock. So Yeah, so she needs to do her homework before 8, get all that done, whatever else, take a shower, all the stuff that she does between 8 and 9. So whatever it is, whatever habits and stuff that you've taught your kids, I think that it's good to factor all of that stuff in there, for sure. So yeah, back to OpenDNS. Filtering for free is basic, and then advanced filtering is $19.95 per year, and that's just $20. $20 for a year allows you to have a lot more filtering, a lot more capabilities as far as what you'll allow access to and what not. There's obviously with the basic service you filter out adult websites, but and maybe dating websites, I think, something like that. But with the advanced filtering, you can even shut off swimsuit and lingerie websites, Maxim.com. You can get real specific and type in certain websites that you don't allow in your home. So for $20 a year, it just depends on how tech savvy that you are and how you want to use that. All right. Now filtering outside of your home. What's that?
Sorry, I
Oh.
have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
On the OpenDNS, like if you install that, does that mean that anything used in your home is automatically filtered, so you don't have to go in and filter each device separately, or is it a good idea to do both?
It's a good idea to do both if you're going to take whatever the device is outside of your home. So when you're at home, whatever's accessing the Wi-Fi router, it's going to filter that.
Okay, so even
Yeah.
if like friends come over with their devices. they're not
Exactly.
Only if they're on your Wi-Fi though.
Only if they're on
If they're on
Wi-Fi.
cellular data, they can
Yeah,
still access
okay.
whatever they want.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. So babysitters that come over and they ask for the Wi-Fi password or whatever, we give access to that for after our kids go to bed or whatever it is. We expect them not to use their cell phones when our kids are not in bed when we have babysitters over. But for sure. So anyone that comes over, friends spending the night and so on. Yeah. So yeah, that all works. Mm-hmm.
You're pretty tech savvy, but for someone who's not, how difficult is it to use an alternative product? Because if you kind of suggested it's a little difficult.
If you look, excuse me, yeah, if you call their tech support and ask them to walk you through it step by step, that it usually works well. Yeah. So it's not that difficult to install it. What I meant by if you're tech savvy, the more filtering that you want to do. You want to filter out certain websites, you could certainly call their tech support and ask them, how do I do that? You know, there's a website that's
What websites that they recommend filtering? Because I wouldn't know those.
so that they filter out all the porn sites, but if there's something specific, some specific website that you thought specifically was questionable that you found yourself, you know, but yeah, they have tech teams and stuff that monitor, because there's about 1,000 new porn websites that are coming out every week or even every day, you know, 100 websites they're creating every day. So they have staff that are constantly monitoring that, and there's web, yeah, so you don't have to do that, right? So I'm saying if there's something that you specifically thought that was questionable yourself, if it was sportsillustrated.com, you know, the swimsuit issue or whatever that they have on their website, and you wanted to specifically block that, you know, si.com or whatever it is. So if you find things that you want to filter yourself personally and to not allow in your home, you can use the advanced service to do that. So it gives you a lot more options. But their tech support is really great. Yeah, they know people really need this service, and most of us are not tech savvy enough to just run with it and install it and do, you know, make it do what it needs to do. So yeah, if you go on their website, click on contact us or whatever, their phone number, you know, their toll-free number is listed on there. So you could give them a call.
What's the
Mhm.
difference? I know a lot of the home routers,
Yeah.
and you get access to it, and you can set parental limits right there on the router.
Yeah.
How's that different from the DN?
Mm-hmm.
How's that different from the open DNS?
Open DNS.
Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe the I do all my filtering directly on the router.
And I think that's more advanced tech savvy
Okay.
from
Whereas
what
if
I've.
you could kind of attach this open DNS to your router.
Yeah.
Is that what? Okay.
Yeah.
How about, how effective are they? I mean, obviously for adult sites and stuff like that, but when you get into the Facebook and the chat or all the other stuff that's going on right now, it won't block that, and you talk to them about, we don't allow her on it. There's so many ways to get her on there with a different name. You know, they're so good.
Yeah. And that's
Is
part.
there any way just to block it off their phone completely, the Facebook?
Yeah, there is. And so with OpenDNS, with the advanced filtering, like I was talking about, part of it is when you pay for that service, they do give you a lot of different categories. So you can click on social networking sites. You click on that, I want to block that, and check a box for dating websites or advertisement websites like Craigslist or whatever it is, and chat rooms. So you could filter all that stuff out. I believe that service is that's included in the $20 a year. So that yeah, those different categories, and then you can filter out specific websites. So Sports Illustrated, whatever it is.
And that works outside of the home as well, not just with Wi-Fi.
It does with this next part. Yeah. OpenDNS umbrella. So this service, it's actually something that you install on your laptops and on your cell phones, on your tablets. So for $20 per year, it's an extra $20 a year for every 3 devices. You install this onto each device, and then whenever it's taken outside of your home and it accesses another another Wi-Fi router, whatever it is, internet, a Starbucks, and so on, or if it's using the cell tower, internet from the cell tower, and it will block all of the same from there. So when they take all of these devices outside of the home, and laptops can be filtered in a lot of different ways. There are other opportunities for laptops to be filtered, like I think Covenant Eyes and other companies like that have filtering for laptops, but it's a little bit different for cell phones, for smartphones, and tablets. Covenant Eyes and some of those services do not filter on those devices. So laptops. So this service is great because you can use it for your laptop and the cell phone and the tablet, and it's all done. Just install an app, put in your username and password, and you're basically covered.
And then do you control it? Is it a global setting for all the devices that you have signed up, I guess?
It is, or you could set up different profiles.
Oh, okay.
So you can say like, yeah, these cell phones are filtered this way, and these tablets are filtered this way, and it's the same deal. You need to, so yeah, it's if you're real tech savvy, you can jump into all this stuff and you'll figure it out. If not, their tech support, they're happy to walk through whoever needs help.
How do you prevent your kid from deleting it from your phone? Is it like an app, or is there like a lock on it that has to have a password?
There's a lock with a password. It installs a profile that it won't, they can't delete it unless they have the password. If they figure out the password, so what I recommend is regular inspections, phone inspections, yeah.
Quick question, do you know if when it says it's going to go from porn sites, does that also include this whole cartoon porn is coming out now, whether it's all anime or cartoon porn, and is it filtered as well?
Yeah, nudity.
It just moves you across the board.
I'm assuming illustrated nudity is the same category as real photographs and video. Yeah. So pornography is pornography, naked people. And then for iOS devices, for Apple cell phones and tablets, I actually created some instructions, and in that, kind of like your wireless router that you were talking about, Terry, you can set up parental filters. Apple has allowed us to do that on this technology, and there's instructions. They might be slightly outdated because they come out with a new operating system all the time, every few months. But if you go to living-truth.org, click on Teens, and scroll down to Help for Parents, there's a link on how to do this. It'll pull up instructions and stuff, step-by-step instructions on how to lock down those devices. So you can go in there and it's the same, you put in a password, it's called restrictions, I think is what they call it. And you put in a password and you can say, I want to limit adult content, or I want to block all websites. And I don't suggest that you click, I want to block every website, because then your kid is going to be coming and saying, I can't access this website or that, and you have to keep typing in a password to give them access to everything. But limit adult websites is a really great place to start. And then occasionally you'll find that it'll filter out something that you want to give them access to, and they'll come and they'll ask you, put in the password, I can't get access to this, whatever it is. But for the most part, this limit adult content is the box that I'm suggesting you check on these instructions. And let's see. Yeah. So yeah, in the instructions, what I also suggest too is you can check. You could filter out all sorts of different things. You can shut the camera off. You can shut off the video chat feature, FaceTime they call it. You can set up so many of these different categories. But the main thing that I suggest is you can allow them to install applications on their cell phone and on the tablet. But then there's another slider that you check to say you cannot delete any of the apps. So the way that I've set up my teen's phone is I allow her to install applications, but she can't delete them. So a lot of people ask me, well, what if she installs something that's related to porn? And the way her phone is locked down, she won't be able to access the actual internet website that's attached to it, more than likely. But we have regular conversations. So I look at her phone and I look through the apps that she has on it. If she installed it, she can't delete it. So I find it, and we have a conversation about it. So it goes back to having those open conversations, and really the deal is if they want to find it, they'll find it. If they're really hungry and especially addicted to pornography, we're going to find a way around all these checks and balances. So I'm not giving access to, I don't want my daughter to find it, but I want to have those conversations if she installs something that's questionable. Plus, if it's a new app that I don't know about, I want to know why did that come up that has access to pornography or whatever. So yeah, moving on. There is a website that you want to pay attention to, iParent.tv, and what this company does, they actually look at all the different new apps that are coming out, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of these applications that can be installed on this technology. And who has time to sit down and look at all these apps and decide is this questionable or is it not, and to research every single thing on the internet? That's what this company does. So as parents, they research these applications and they understand, is it potentially harmful or is it not? There's a lot of seemingly innocent apps that are out there that can access their vehicles for random sexual hookups, sexting, and pornography use. So yeah, apps. So it has a ton of info. And what you want to do with this website is you want to go, whenever you have your kid ask you to install, do I want to let them have access to this app or not? If it pops up on their smartphone or tablet, you don't know what it is, you can go to iParent TV and check it out. Type in, search for it, or if you set it up that they cannot install any of the apps, and they say, my friend has this app, can I have it on my phone or my tablet? You can go to this website and you can research it, see what does it do. And it's just interesting what some of these apps could do. Craziness. There's a couple of apps. One, I found that there's a calculator app, and if you open it up and you look, you look at it and you type, it looks exactly like a calculator. It functions just like a calculator. You can do all the calculations and so on. But if you type in a certain password, you have to set up the password when you install the app. You type in a certain series of numbers, whatever the password is, and the calculator slides over to the right or to the left, and then you have access to all these different hiding places where you can put video and photos. So it's a place to hide pictures. What kind of pictures would you want to hide in a calculator, right? So yeah, there's it looks and functions just like a calculator, but but it's not. And so how do I know? If you see a calculator on your kid's phone, it's there is a calculator that comes with our phone too. So how do I tell the difference between the two? You know, I think one of them you can delete and one of them you can't delete, basically. So that's how you know. Why did you install a second calculator? And yeah, you can click on it and see what the name of the app actually is. They can't call it calculator; they have to call it something else. But it looks just like a calculator. And then there's another app called Periscope, and Periscope it's a really interesting app that I found. Some of you might have heard of this, but what it is I think Periscope. You know, I thought of the Navy or whatever in a submarine, you know, a little scope that comes out and you can look through it. Well, that's kind of what it is. You turn this on, and basically it gives your camera turns on your video, so you're basically given a video feed to anyone on the internet that wants to look at you. So people are putting on shows and stuff. It's like your own personal show that anyone who has this app can look at you. Now, there's all kinds of different things that can be used for really good things. I was looking through it one day and just seeing what is this really used for. There was a guy that he's playing guitar, so you click on it and you're sitting there watching him play guitar, and he said request a song. So you type in what song you wanted to play, and he'll play the song for you. Then they can't hear you, but you hear them, and it's the other way around. You're watching this guy play guitar, so you can hear him and you can see the video. He can't hear you, but you can text him. You can type in. So suggest a song. There's another where somebody says, "I'll pray for you." You know, so you can watch that feed. Click on that person, type in a prayer request. They'll actually sit there and pray with you. So it could be used for really great things. Then you keep on scrolling through, and there's a teenage girl that says, "If 600 people start watching this, I'll take off my clothes." You knew it was going to come to that, right? Eventually. So Periscope. Periscope is, so when I found that out, I blocked it from all of our phones. I went on OpenDNS and blocked it there, and like Periscope is bad news. I don't want to have a live video feed coming into my home for whoever it is that wants to see it. So I'm sure that there are people who are standing by monitoring this kind of stuff. When I was looking at it, watching the guy play guitar, I think there's a button that you can press that says this is questionable or whatever it is, and somebody will investigate it. But did that stop your teenage girl from just pulling up her shirt or whatever it is in an instant? That this is the kind of thing that can happen, and people can take screenshots. You know how to do that on your phone or your tablet, and there they have a picture of a teenage girl, and somebody really across the world. I mean, there's literally there you can see the location, and there were people from New York and California and from Europe. So really interesting app, Periscope. All right. So where are we going? What does the future of porn look like? Anybody know what this picture is? Can you tell me what's going on in this picture? Mm-hmm. Mikey knows. He knows the model number of this thing, right? Yeah, virtual reality. So you put these glasses on, and it basically projects you into a brand new world. And of course, they're using it for video games right now. That's how all this technology works. The porn industry is all over this, of course. So you put these glasses on, and you can't see what's going on around you. You basically, you see this new world, and it has peripheral vision and all that stuff. So obviously, they're going to use this for pornography. The next thing that we don't even have a picture of this yet, but they're manufacturing is holographic glasses, hologram. whatever they call them. Mike, you probably know what that's called, holographic? Whatever, yeah, that's right, whatever it is. Hologram. So with this other set of glasses that's not in this picture, you put this on and you can see the room that you're in, but it projects a hologram in front of you. So you can see that in addition to everything that's going on around you. So pornography is obviously going in this direction. Isn't that great news, for our kids and for our grandkids? The technology is used for incredible things like Periscope, all this stuff. There's always a good side and there's always an evil side. Hologram, I can't picture a good use for that right now. If you want to project your sermons or something like that into there, but it's just I have no idea. Picture something good for this technology, but it's yeah. Or the calculator app, there's some that just, I can't picture anything really good, any good use coming out of this, but for most things, there's a good side and there's a bad side. You have to make these decisions. What am I going to allow in my house? What am I not going to allow my kid to use? So, all right. So now we're going to do some more questions. Kristen, want to come back up here? And
It doesn't seem like
questions
this
for her.
crowd has a hard time asking questions out loud.
Right.
So if you have an embarrassing question that you don't want to say out loud, text it to us. Or feel free to continue to ask any questions. Mikey.
Do you guys have a surefire way on how to block YouTube?
You can,
I have used OpenDNS. I'm only on the basic level of it, but my daughter, 3 years old, always gets on YouTube. My 2 boys can't, but my daughter always finds a way.
now,
Yeah, you
did
have
you talk
to-
about YouTube Kids yet?
I didn't, but yeah. So YouTube.com and the YouTube app is one avenue, and yeah, you can access pornography. Shows up every now and then on there. There's another app called YouTube Kids. That's and then Right Now Media. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one, but you can subscribe to Right Now Media, and they have an app. You can click on the kids piece to that, and there's just it's the kind of thing where you can just hand the tablet over and say, here, watch whatever you want. If it's Right Now Media,
It's all
they have
Christ-centered.
VeggieTales and
Right Now
Christ-centered,
Media, yeah.
Christ-centered kid stuff. YouTube for Kids is a little different. There's
Yeah.
there's video of other kids playing with toys on there and stuff.
But
It's-
we've never seen anything inappropriate on YouTube Kids. And it's glorious because you can set a time limit, like 30 minutes, and it shuts off after 30 minutes. 'Cause
But yeah, back to your question about how do you filter it, and the only way that I've been able to filter it out is by just not allowing the app to be installed, because it's
But
really
you're saying she
bizarre.
accesses it on the internet.
Yeah, she'll either download the app or access it on the internet because YouTube's different because it uses about 8 different websites. There's 8 different locations where that app actually runs out of.
There's 4 maybe?
And I know some routers, they have a limit on what they can filter out. A lot of them will not filter anything that's HTTPS.
Yeah. So with OpenDNS, your router, all of your traffic goes through those two DNS servers. So you're actually setting up the filter on OpenDNS on their DNS server. A little technical conversation between me and Michael, of course. He's in IT. I used to be in IT. Yeah, we're not going to teach you what a DNS server is, and you don't need to know that right now. But but when you're putting these filtering settings, you're not actually putting that on your router. You're actually putting these settings on their website, and all of your traffic goes through their website, through their internet services and their computers, before you get access out to the internet world. So that's a great question. I think OpenDNS has, huh?
Just the caveat to that is that it's on the Windows phones, that it's always happening on our Android phones. There's an app that you can actually download. It's ESET Security, Parental Control. And on that one, it's great if you set a time limit. We can disallow any of the apps that we want. And it also keeps a history of everything done.
Unless the daughter changes the time zone on it, which she did, and she was watching it late night. And
Boy, she's savvy.
She grew, she was born with a tablet in her hand.
She's
3.5.
This is what.
she's a computer science major. She's 3.5.
She uses a touch screen way better than anybody else. She was born with a tablet in her hand.
Yeah. And
That
our
happened to her.
4-year-old Ella, I think if I asked her what is the phone used for, just not pull my smartphone out. What's a phone used for? And she would probably say for watching movies, you know. To show her phone with wires attached to it, like I don't even know what that is. She does. She knows what it is, but only because they show the old rusty things, I think, on some crazy cartoon and make fun of it, you know. But yeah, that's there's the whatever the short URL is for the YouTube. I don't know what it is. It's not youtube.com, but they have short website. I don't really know the answer to that, but OpenDNS tech support, that's something that they need to figure out. If they haven't already, I haven't researched that, so yeah, I'll make a note to look into that.
I've never tried it.
Mm-hmm.
I usually avoid tech support. But if OpenDNS is good, I'll try that.
I was just gonna say, hearing everything that you're talking about, a lot of times my solution being a young dad is just kind of to break away, kind of isolate myself from the technology and all that stuff. But I think what's been really sobering, somewhat shocking, is to understand the most effective ways to understand what's out there and how it's being used, and be informed instead of trying to like run away with my fingers and my ears. You know?
Yeah,
So I really
exactly.
appreciate everything that you said.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
The iParent.tv, is that just for iPhone apps, or does that cover Android apps as well?
I believe it's both.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, usually if it's on the iPhone, it's on Android. So these companies they write the app for both platforms. So the usage is basically the same. Periscope on Android is the same as it is on the iPhone.
Knowing that like the big thing right now in social media and texting is the sexting part and sending nudes and random people requesting, nude pictures from somebody, kind of almost blackmailing them and all of that stuff kind of going on. Is there any way to keep track of, I know that that's not something you can block.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the case, but is there any way to keep track of your child's texting?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's a technology that I think is still kind of not yet ready for prime time. I've researched it. There are 5 or 6 different, at least, maybe if not 10, different companies that are trying to do something like that to capture the photos when they send Snapchat photos or whatever, or to be able to access all of your texting, and every one of them that I've tried and taken the time to evaluate it, there's always something that doesn't work right, and it's pretty expensive. I mean, expensive like $10 a month, a lot more expensive than OpenDNS or whatever. So yeah, that's it really is.
There was a new one we just got word of.
Uh-huh.
Have we had a
Yeah.
chance to try that one or no?
That one's like $25 a month.
It's expensive, but
Mm-hmm. For the basic service is like $20 a month for that one, and I did not get a chance to look at it.
yeah, it's
so.
brand new. I mean, this is technology. It
Mhm.
constantly changing.
Yeah. So I think, it just depends on the amount of conversation. If my daughter is talking to Kristen about a boy that's wanting nude photos, and I know how my daughter responded to that, and she gave his number to 3 of her friends, and they all just started heckling him, like, how dare you do this, and they were all like yelling.
It was a
at
little
him over
overboard.
text. It was.
They were like calling him a
they were
perv.
way-
It was bad.
But yeah, anyway.
But at least she didn't give him nude photos.
Right. So they were all like bashing him and blowing up his phone. So I'm glad she did that instead of sent a nude photo. So, but yes, Snapchat that's an app that was originally designed by college students so that they can actually receive nude photos and make their girlfriend comfortable with sending it. So send it to me and it's going to expire in 10 seconds and I can just look at it for 10 seconds and then it's going to be gone. And that's the way it started, but they've made some changes to the app. You can still do that, but it's become another Instagram where you basically post little short videos of yourself doing stupid things and other people watch it. So and it's broadcast to all of your friends. So it's changed quite a bit, and it's like another social networking app. But yeah, I wish that we would find. There's another service called Circle. I think Disney is sponsoring that one, and it's a little white box that you can plug into your internet router, and it's actually a little bit more difficult to use technology-wise than OpenDNS. And I bought the little box and tried it out, and it just, it worked sometimes, but sometimes it just didn't work well. You can set time limits, so you can say, you can set it up so your kid can have 1 hour of Instagram use every day, but it just didn't keep track of the time correctly, and it expired when she opened the app and just didn't close it and wasn't actually using it, and her time expired. It was just, so a lot of this technology, it's really great ideas, but they're just not yet ready for prime time, I think.
I don't have any kids or anything, but you guys are involved in this information. So do you feel within the next 10, 15 years what we're talking about now is going to be more difficult to battle? Because I don't have any kids, but I don't have any kids, and I know it's going to be a different war. What this feels for me, based off what you said about YouTube, it sounds like there's people designing these things to make it harder for us to be parents. So do you feel it's going to be worse?
I can only compare it. So I'm 45, and when I looked at porn when I was 11, the internet wasn't around, and they didn't even have XXX movies. We found my uncle's Playboy magazine, and from there I went home, and there was no access to porn in my house. So I just had those images that I stored in my brain that I could, that's all that I had. So from 11, 13, 14 years old, the internet came out in 1995. You can do the math if you want to know how old I was then. But I had just cut off the long hair in 95. And it's how much worse is it now? We could only go by history and where it's going. And of course, virtual reality. Is it going to be harder to battle that? I think so. Yeah, it's going to get more difficult.
It doesn't make me afraid for us. It doesn't make me afraid for parents who are informed and are parenting their children and walking them alongside it and giving the kids the information they need. It makes me afraid for the general population of parents that are, digital immigrants who are clueless about what's really out there and what kids are really doing. So I don't feel like it's a death sentence or it's like hopeless.
We have Jesus Christ.
We do.
We have the Spirit. We have each other.
Yeah.
So we need to be reminded of that. This is a little bit, I'm sitting here reminding myself of this because this is a little overwhelming. I am not tech savvy. And my son is.
Yeah.
He's 8 and we grew up on, so I have to. Well, the one that's a little more, I wish my husband were here, but he's probably thinking, oh, don't worry so much.
See, and that's the problem is when we stick our heads in the sand and we think we don't need to worry about this, like we have Jesus, so that's enough. And I know that's not what you're saying.
No, I'm saying.
Like we need Jesus and we need to be armed with information. This is like we need a battle plan because this is a spiritual battle.
What I'm saying is we shouldn't feel, because we're sitting here hearing all this, that we shouldn't feel overcome with when they're going to go with the technology, no matter what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we do, we can have those conversations, we can pray, we can do some things in our church to help each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The battle is definitely going to get worse, but it's not a hopeless battle.
Yeah, like I think what she says that, man, like, you know, we think we're so smart, people coming out with all this stuff, like all these ideas and technology, yet Christ is eternal, God's eternal, and he sees everything, he knows everything. And for every wicked thing that comes out, there's always gonna be him to have something, because no one can overcome him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we're going to take a 10-minute break and come back. Our next session, we're going to talk about. So this was all covering younger kids and how do I filter. You know, how do I help my kids and educate them and equip them for the battle. And inevitably they go over to a friend's house or whatever it is, and the idea of kids never being exposed to pornography is not reality. You know, eventually they'll see something. So in our next session, we're going to talk about how to handle that. What do I do after my kid has been exposed?